you can't find a rental car.
Yes, we have no availability, and then hung up.
Travel Last Frontier is our everything Alaska travel business.
Entrepreneurial podcast begins now.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurial podcast.
We're live
We're live.
in a recorded studio. None of this is real.
Oh my goodness. I'm Kelly, and that's Josiah. If you are first time here, we like to start our podcast off with a question of the day. So Josiah, are you ready?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Are you gonna continue eating your beef jerky?
This beef stick is amazing. It's sriracha. Oh, beef and pork. Good news, gluten-free.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, hopefully you don't hear too much smacking going on. But anywho, question of the day. Are you ready now?
Yes.
Okay. Would you rather, Josiah, never eat watermelon ever again or be forced to eat watermelon with every meal?
Never again. Watermelon's good, but I don't want it every meal. So I'd be all right. And quite honestly, living up here in Alaska, watermelon's so expensive that I more or less don't eat it. Maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So I wouldn't even notice it being gone.
We definitely grow watermelons up here. I don't know if we've ever had like a fresh Alaskan watermelon. I'm trying to think. I don't think we have.
Grocery store has them for between $8 and $10 per watermelon. I remember growing up on the East Coast, I believe your average price was closer to $5.
What? Wow. We didn't really grow up with watermelon. I didn't ever really like watermelon. So honestly, I would have no idea how much a watermelon costs.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say. I mean, that's pretty basic question. There's not too much to read into there.
So the main question is watermelon your favorite go-to summer food?
No.
That's why I picked this question, because watermelon, you associate watermelon with summertime.
Yeah,
What's your favorite go-to?
I enjoy
then?
watermelon. Probably go for like the strawberry, pineapples.
Ooh.
There's tons of other really good fruits. If I had to list my favorite fruits, top 5, watermelon would not be in the top 5. It's good, not my favorite. Because, when you break down what watermelon is, it's mostly water. Versus other fruits actually have some sustenance, a little more substance besides water. More flavor.
Yeah, I do really love strawberries. That's what I'm excited about this summer.
Strawberries probably my favorite.
Strawberries. Fresh strawberries in Alaska. I mean, I don't think anybody really grows. I mean, you can grow them in like your garden or greenhouse or whatnot. But it's not like they're wild here or something. But I do love them. They're a lot fresher at the grocery store. If you try to buy a strawberry or any type of berry for that matter in the grocery store in off season, not in summertime, it is yikes. They're typically moldy and mushy because by the time they get up here, it's just been too long and they're just not good. So if you are visiting Alaska and you want berries, this is a great time of year to get them. Oh, goodness. Okay, so are you done? Do you have any comments for that?
No, I have nothing else to say.
Okay, I also really excited about, we love hot dogs. I love hot dogs during summertime, so that's a fun food this summer. And it's a great way to get outside, right? Stand by a barbecue or a fire. It's great. Love summertime. Last episode probably came out maybe a month or so ago.
Oh yeah, it's been a little while since we.
It's been a minute. So we apologize for that. Hopefully you weren't too concerned. but there was just some family stuff going on, and we just decided we're just going to not do the podcast for a little bit. But if you follow us on social media, you could have seen some of the posts or stories we post there. So highly recommend you go check us out on Instagram. That's where we post the most, I'd say daily or close to daily. I'm jellybagel_AK. And then Josiah is baconbagel_AK. So go check us out there. If you're missing us, if we don't put enough podcasts out for you.
Yeah, but we also have another Instagram account, and that's what we're talking about today, right?
Yes, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Do you want, or you could just share it. Just share it.
Excuse me. Travel the Last Frontier. And this is connected to a business that we've been working on for a while, related to Alaska travel. I think we've mentioned it before in other episodes. We kind of took a break from it last year because of, well, everything that was going on. Travel in Anchorage and Alaska as a whole, non-existent due to government regulations and people's desires therein not to travel as much. But things are opening back up.
Yeah,
it's looking like this will be a pretty busy, potentially busy travel season for Alaska, despite some continuing challenges, especially regarding cruise ships and things like that. But it's looking like there'll be a lot of travelers. So we're ramping that business back up, trying to get back into it, capture some of the momentum of this coming travel season. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, right, Kelly?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but we're first going to talk about, which has to do with travel. Anchorage is weird market right now with travel and how that's going. So for obvious reasons, people are more willing to travel right now. However, for other obvious reasons, this past year has been tough on travel, especially to Alaska. But from what we've read and done some research on, a lot more people are willing to travel to Alaska that they may not have considered because they don't want to travel internationally or can't travel internationally. So they're like, I still want to travel. I don't want to necessarily stay in the lower 48. Let's go check out Alaska, because you still have to, well, typically you still have to fly up here. And right now you can't drive through Canada to get here, right? Except for specific business reasons. We're not going to get into it. But if you're trying to visit Alaska, do not drive up here. You cannot. Unless you get the ferry from Washington State. You can get a couple of ferries to come to Alaska. But besides that option, you can't just physically drive the whole way because of Canada's borders situation. Anywho, the weird market specifically in Alaska for travel has skyrocketed, kind of, especially in regards to flying in. If you missed one of our previous episodes, we covered the top 5 industries in Alaska for business, and one of them, the top, I think was it number 2 or 3? I think it was 2 or 3. It's travel. There. It's the travel industry. So you'll have to go check that out if you want to learn the other ones. That other episode. So travel being one of the top industries brings in like lots of money to Alaska, which is really cool because many Alaskans love to share our great state and all the fun, cool activities you can do and just explore the outdoors here. It's a big part of the culture. But typically, except for last year and this year, the number one way for people to travel to Alaska or around was by cruise ship. People would cruise up. They might fly in and then take a cruise, but typically it's a cruise up from the West Coast, and they'll stop at a couple ports, maybe drive or take the train a couple places, and then get back on the boat, go home. But with some rules, regulations, cruise ships not offering their services at all, that's not really an option so far. Currently, it is mid-May when we're recording this. So right now, there's not a single cruise ship booked to come up here. Maybe that'll change. That would be really awesome because a lot of people like to travel that way.
Yeah, with the cruise ships, I think ships will be coming up later in the season. The main reason they couldn't is many, if not all, cruise ships for probably primarily tax and regulation purposes claim a different country as their place of origin. They don't fly the US flag. They fly other countries. And because of that, the US law is that if a cruise ship is going to go from US port to US port, such as from Washington to Alaska, they have to stop at a foreign port somewhere along that trip in order to be allowed to maintain that foreign status. So with that, the ships coming up to Alaska would stop in Canada. Canada has very, very strict rules and is not letting any ships stop in their ports. So that completely negated the options for the cruise industry coming to Alaska. But recently, and I probably should read up a little bit more on it, but I believe the U.S.
Congress,
yeah, thank you. The U.S. Congress has passed a temporary resolution such that as long as Canada has that rule, cruise ships coming to Alaska can forego stopping at a foreign port. So now, as long as, and I believe Canada has that rule set in place until 2022, so they can come right on up here without stopping in Canada now, legally. So I think because of that, cruise ships are probably scrambling to try to figure out how to safely get some customers, make some money this season.
I'm sure how quickly they can even put a ship together.
Yeah,
this
I don't know.
Minute.
I don't know if they could get stuff together for June, but I feel like July, August, September, I don't see why they couldn't.
And those are awesome times of year to come, even still. It's not like, oh, you should like not come at all because you missed May or maybe even June if like they're not able to come in June. But it's still a great time of year to come, July, August, September. But so not just cruise ships, but because of that, people are flying in. Still can't drive, but they're flying in. Other popular way, beautiful way. If you go to our Instagram on Travel Last Frontier, like that you at Travel Last Frontier on Instagram, you can check out a cool post we did, a reel about flying. We happened to be flying out at that time, but some cool video footage I have from that. It's breathtaking. You even flying in or out, you can get amazing views from the window. It's almost like paying for a flight, one of those flight experiences to see the mountains and stuff. So it's pretty cool. With that though, if people are flying in and they're not taking the cruise ship, what do you typically need when you travel on the ground? You need a car. So last year, and this was happening nationwide though, there was multiple, if not many, rental car companies that were reducing their fleet size, so the amount of cars they had. And then there was at least one, if not two, major mergers between brands of rental car companies. But they still, at this time, specifically, is it just Anchorage or you're saying Alaska as a whole? I think the major hub, right? We have the largest city is Anchorage, Alaska. That doesn't mean you can only rent cars from Anchorage, but it is obviously one of the bigger stops. Like you can come in from a flight to the Anchorage airport and get a car and then go wherever you want. But is it really the rental cars from a lot of places are just short? They don't have they had very few cars. And then on top of that, so many people have booked them already. Like, there's absolutely no rental cars available. I mean, I guess unless somebody cancels, but
I believe it's a nationwide problem.
Yeah.
And beyond that, along with many of the other shortages that have happened due to circumstances from 2020, microchips and processors are one of those, and our fancy new cars need those. So there has also been some difficulty for manufacturers creating and building new cars because of those shortages. So I think that's created increased demand, probably, I would assume, for used cars. And but yeah, also the biggest thing is a lot of rental companies, in order to stay afloat, dumped some of their older stock last year, and there just isn't enough new stock, or they don't have enough capital to buy more vehicles to catch up with the demand, especially in a super tourist packed time like Alaska's about to hit. There's just not enough time for Hertz to boat in a bunch of new cars. So
right, 'cause that's
the
the main way they
demand
come.
greatly outweighs the supply.
Right, and it's gonna for sure affect the rest of the major travel season. Not that we don't have visitors come to Alaska, obviously year round, but naturally, right? When do most people want to come up? Summertime. School's out. It's warmer up here. There's a lot of cool things that don't need snow involved in regards to activities. Yeah, so it's kind of wild to see it. Like, we've been looking even ourselves just to see what the market looks, and there's absolutely nothing. You can't find a rental car. And because of that, you were reading people, I mean, right, naturally, are reconsidering their plans to even visit. They're considering they've already booked flights and maybe some hotels or, cabins and whatnot. And they're like, well, maybe I'll cancel all of these because I don't have a way to get to and from. So we've talked about ourselves. There's a couple solutions if you're one of that group that's coming up to Alaska, or somebody who's coming up to Alaska. You can use, there's plenty of RVs that you could potentially rent from place to place, or what you'd call camper vans. That's another good idea that you can look at. Obviously, because you can camp in them, they're going to be a little bit more expensive, but you could cancel your hotels and then you can camp in those. That'd be kind of cool.
Another unique solution I've heard that some people are doing is actually renting U-Hauls for their vacation rentals or whatever it might be.
Really?
Probably not the box trucks, but a lot of U-Hauls have the pickup trucks that are, fairly comparable, decent rate. I know Home Depot or Lowe's? I think some of them also have pickup truck rentals. So if you're looking for a unique solution, that might be an option. Roll around at the beach or in Anchorage on vacation in a U-Haul pickup truck.
Now, don't forget, you can always set yourself up for a certain hotel in the downtown area. I'm talking specifically about Anchorage here, or I guess you can consider anywhere. And you could try to Uber or do Lyft or a local cab. But I do see how people are like, well, I was going to use the rental car to drive to said unique place, a different city. And there is still a train in Alaska that you could use to go south towards Seward. You can go north all the way up to Fairbanks. So it's not like you can't travel without a car around here, but I totally understand people's want or need of being able to stop when they want, where they want, instead of having to go by, said traffic, or I guess not traffic, excuse me, train or whatnot.
Another option is peer-to-peer sharing. You've probably heard of Airbnb, the hotel version of peer-to-peer sharing, where people can rent out a portion of their home or an entire home or guest suite on their property. There's a few platforms that do exactly that for cars. The big one that I am most familiar with is Turo. I think they're the leaders in that industry, but there's a few others. I believe Get Around, and I'm drawing a blank on the other. But it's the same concept. You can list your personal car or start a little business with a small fleet of cars, and you, using their platform, rent them to the customer. So you as the customer can go on there, put your dates in just like any other rental agency, say what time you want to pick it up, what location you want to pick it up, and it'll show you what options there are. Even on Turo for this summer, and we've used Turo a few times, and I've kept an eye on it as a potential business option for a couple years. Even on Turo for this summer in Anchorage, there are very slim pickings, and because of that, the demand is outweighing the supply. Naturally, the price is going to go up a little. So with that, we're looking into exploring that as a business option.
But I think you might be getting ahead of yourself.
Am I?
No, I'm just joking. Yeah, that it has been of interest to us, especially because we've used it a couple times for personal need at different locations that we were visiting. And yeah, it was a very good, it worked out for us. It was a very good app, similar to how if you've used Airbnb, which tends to be more popular now. Yeah, it's overall a good resource.
Yeah, some advantages to Turo that traditional rental companies don't have. You don't have to use a credit card. Number 2, the age restrictions.
That's a
Can you help me out here, Kelly? Is it 25?
Yeah. It's
in
25.
order to rent from a traditional rental agency? I think sometimes you can get it a little younger, but they're going to smack you with huge extra fees and stuff, so it's really not worth it.
Yeah, massive. And on top of that, if you don't have a credit card, you can't rent one below the age of 25 without a credit card.
Yeah, so as far as I know, the only rental agency that will accept debit cards is Dollar. We usually use them because of that. Turo, yeah, you can use a debit card. I think you just have to be over 21, I want to say. They do have an age minimum. And, no credit check, nothing. So maybe you've burned some bridges with rental agencies because you're a bad renter. Yikes. Or something didn't turn out well. Turo will probably take you. You do have to verify your identity and such in order to set up an account. But yeah, I think that's enough on Turo. Next slide.
Yeah. You kind of mentioned it, talking about, talking through using Turo as a business opportunity for ourselves. Well, speaking of, and we mentioned it before, Travel Last Frontier is our everything Alaska travel business. Did you want to speak about why we started this?
Yeah, so we've lived in Alaska for over 4 years now. And we've enjoyed every moment of it. We've enjoyed exploring and traveling, and we have had many friends and family want to come visit us. And probably not to see us, but to see where we live and do some once-in-a-lifetime kind of exploration. And so with that, we've been able to, every time family comes or in our personal free time, try some really cool stuff. And we're excited to share some of those experiences. And we often get asked by people, what's good to do in Anchorage? What about what's good to do in Seward? And we've tried a lot of different things, and we want to share those experiences with others. And so with that, a year or two ago, we started a travel agency style business, helping people create itineraries and book different activities and trips Did you want to talk about that more?
Yeah, that was a couple years ago. You were still in the military, and we discussed how we loved Alaska and how we wanted to get people not only up here, but typically people want to come, but they're kind of just like overwhelmed with trying to figure out where to go, what to do. And because of the nature of Alaska and Alaskans, sadly, sometimes certain activities or certain companies might not look amazing via a website because they're not going to put their funds into a website. So we've been on certain sites that have like absolutely amazing like websites set you can like book through them online. It's like super easy. And other times we've done some amazing activities that have terrible websites to be quite honest. And it's really weird, and you have to like call this number, and then sometimes we didn't even know, but we were waking them up in the middle of the night or early in the morning. And long story short, we realized, wow, especially if you're in the lower 48 or international, but we're just going to talk like if our family and friends are coming up, if I was them, I'd be like, we're not going to go with them. But some of these opportunities were just so great. They really were amazing. We still did them anyways because they were just awesome.
Yeah, here's a funny story with that. Yeah, like you said, a lot of businesses up here are old school. You call them, you book over the phone. They have a mediocre website that was made in 2005.
Maybe.
And never updated. Or the last time they updated it was 2 years ago. Because it says, welcome, here's the 2019 schedule. And you're like, well, that's not what I want. So, there was a campground a couple years ago. They were trying to see if they had availability. Their website was awful. It was a chore just to find their phone number. Once I found their phone number, I called. It wasn't that late at night. It was maybe 9 p.m. or so.
Right.
And a more elderly sounding woman answered the phone and I went, hello?
Yeah.
Clearly, like she had just been sleeping. Yes. And I was like, so I'm trying to reach the such and such campground. Is this the such and such campground? And she's like, yes, we have no availability. And then hung up. So, yeah, she didn't answer my question. But, yeah, it's just an example of what you might experience trying to book stuff by just using the old phone book, which is sometimes what you got to do. So, we saw that as an opportunity to help work on and curate a list of these are really good vendors that we can recommend to people. And then with that, here's the best way to book it. So kind of our business model that we started with that is, well, if you don't know how travel agents work, there's kind of two options. One, the travel agency will charge you an upfront cost to plan your itinerary, and then you'll book through them, and they usually get you could call it an affiliate cut from the vendor that they're booking. Maybe 5, maybe 10%, something like that. And so they have two kind of ways to get revenue there. Some from the vendor, some directly from you. The advantage to that is once they get you as the customer to put a down deposit, they've committed to using your services. We didn't really want to do that style. We went the other option when we started out, which is offer our services for free. We would chat with our potential clients, kind of figure out what they're looking for, create an itinerary, a potential itinerary for them, and then have them book through us. We would do the legwork of booking with each vendor for their activities, and then later on after the trip had happened and everything, we would get a check of that affiliate cut from the different vendors, depending on what those vendors worked out with us. And that worked all right. A few times here and there, and some of this probably more because of the nature of 2020's travel season, when we were really trying to ramp this up, we put in a decent amount of legwork making custom itineraries for some people, and the trips fell through. So we did a lot of work and got nothing out of it. And over the past, I don't know, 6 months or so, we've been thinking about how maybe that business model isn't exactly what works best for us and our lifestyle.
And sometimes the customer. We were, several of the people we were helping, honestly, they didn't even mind booking things themselves. It was just more of like, hey, can you like help us find this stuff? And so we realized, especially more recently, hey, why don't we just go that route instead of trying to make a custom trip per person and do all like the booking for them, when typically when we were interacting with clients and whatnot, they and their families, they didn't really know when they wanted to do it. Like they had a rough idea when they're coming, or like, you know, these are set dates for sure when we're coming. But a lot of that, when they wanted to book, they'd rather just wait for it a little bit later, which is totally fine. But it did make it, you know, more time consuming at our end, trying to like help going back and forth with, which we realized maybe they just want us to recommend places, give them a link, and they'll book it themselves, which is, I mean, that might honestly be easier for the customer.
Yeah, so we're trying to adapt our business model to the audience that we found we were reaching. Not necessarily people that didn't want to book it themselves, they just needed help. And with that, in order to incentivize people to still book through us using our affiliate link or whatever it might be, we're trying to, and we're in the process of doing this, trying to work with vendors so that people who book using our resources will actually get a little discount from the vendor themselves, and then we also later will get a small cut from the vendor. That's what we're seeking to do going forward. And we're in the process of kind of switching that business model over right now. Maybe a little behind for this travel season, but quite honestly, I wasn't too enthusiastic about this travel season. But all of a sudden, it's looking really good.
It is. I wouldn't say it's up to par with previous years, but it certainly is way higher than last year. Naturally, right?
Yeah, so with that, if you're interested in traveling to Alaska, check us out on Instagram and YouTube. Those are the two places we primarily post content. We have been revamping the YouTube a little bit, trying to show some of our activities that we've done personally, some really cool places we've been, some really cool trips. So give that a follow. Share to your friends or anyone that you know that might be interested in Alaska. Or if you just like seeing cool stuff, do that as well.
We love,
Help us out.
Yeah, we love interacting with you all, even if like you're not able to come up. We just like to show off Alaska because we really truly love it. But so you already mentioned kind of what we're doing this summer and now going forward, our business model with the referring certain activities. But you already mentioned it. We're kind of looking into the renting out cars. That definitely goes with, I think did we bring up we wanted to open Airbnbs before?
Yeah, so long term with the travel style business, we don't want to necessarily just be agency helping people find and book activities. We want to be a little bit more in providing accommodations, Airbnb style. And with that, an easier way, an easier option that's related to that to get into, not as capital heavy, is the rental cars. And we've looked at it before. It just didn't really seem to make sense at the time with all the things we had going on in our personal life and jobs. But now we have a little more flexibility, and there's definitely a increased demand. So it's a opportunity that I think we're gonna explore. We're doing a little more study and research on particularly the insurance and the other behind the scenes things that go into it, so that we do it the proper way.
Right, like even something as basic as getting the car cleaned and ready before the next customer. Like, gotta kind of have somewhat of a plan in place. Can't just go, I mean, we could certainly wing it, but not necessarily what we want to do for, the brand Travel the Last Frontier.
Exactly. So I think that kind of covers what we wanted to talk about today. Just kind of share our goals and experience with that particular business and what we're looking to do going forward. So thanks for listening along. If you've ever done one of these things, Turo, Airbnb, travel, maybe you're someone who travels a lot and has some thoughts on how we could help travelers, let us know. Do a comment thing. Send us a message.
Yeah. You can comment, certainly if you're watching this on YouTube. Comment down below. But if you're listening on a podcast, check us out on Instagram and send us a message. Comment on our latest post. You can find me at jellybagel_AK, and Josiah's at
baconbagel_AK.
You can also find our travel business, Travel the Last Frontier. It's just Travel the Last Frontier.
Yeah, and that's on Instagram and YouTube.
If you are listening on a podcast but want to check out these videos and others, you can find us at Entrepreneur on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to listen to your podcast because you can download it ahead of time before you get on your flight up to Alaska, follow us there. You can find us at Entrepreneur. I have heard on Apple Podcasts, the main way you can't really find, I think it's like a typo thing. I wonder if Apple Podcasts is finding when you type in Entrepreneur a typo, and so it's looking up just entrepreneur or something. So you might have to type in Josiah and Kelly Nagel, or Josiah Nagel or Kelly Nagel. But that was interesting. If you know anything about that, let us know. That was interesting tidbit we figured out. We don't have Apple products. So that was like our key thing. If you follow us on Instagram, we ask you guys sometimes, because we're like, hey, we don't have Apple products. Apple people out there, can you find us? Because we don't know what we're doing in that regard for Apple stuff. We are definitely, should I say anti-Apple? Maybe anti-Apple. I don't know.
We're about to get kicked off the Apple podcast system.
Yikes.
Should probably stop there. Thanks for listening, watching, sleeping through this. We'll see you next time.
Bye.